Well, first up, joining me this week is someone earning his 18th Harpin cap. I had the pleasure of meeting himself and his better half just after the URC semifinal. Welcome back to Mr. Jay Long.
Hey Jeff, thanks for having me. It's good to be back.
Great to have you on. And also joining us, we have a contributor making his Harpin debut. He's a proud Welshman who, sorry, what's this? Okay, sorry, thanks. I've just been handed a revised draft of this intro. Apparently the lads in the Harpin WhatsApp group have made a few changes to it. So here it is. I'm reading it for the first time ever. He's the social media's resident vexillologist and Irish rugby's unofficial ambassador to the Ivory Coast. If you've recently blocked someone online, you'll probably be familiar with his handiwork. Welcome to Mr. Ed Jenkins, also known as Ed Jenks. Hello, sir.
Hello. Absolutely incredible that you let me on, to be honest. I still can't quite believe it. So yeah, thank you.
You should. It's amazing how many of the lads came to me separately, not coordinated at all, says, Jeff, you have to get Ed on the pod. Followed up by, you have to get Ed on. And then he says, he's not as bad as he seems online. He's really decent bloke. Really decent bloke. They all said it to him, man. It's like they rehearsed it, but I know they didn't. So I said, okay. I said, lads, I have no problem. Yeah, we'll get him on. I was going to do it anyway.
Well, I've met quite a few people.
Yeah.
I've had the good fortune of meeting quite a few people I've met on Twitter over the years, and that's quite often what I get is I thought, oh my God, we're meeting him. Is he going to be an absolute roaster? Is he going to be all right?
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be the first meeting from online that didn't go well, but I think in this case, I think it went. I think it kind of worked out.
It's okay. It's okay. I've come on you prepared mentally for an ambush, so it's fine. You come up, boys.
Oh, okay. So we go back to script A. Okay, fair enough. That's no problem.
I think Sheehan, definitely. I think Genge. I thought he played very well last night. And I think he's a big game player. He brings that edge. I think he's a winner and he's a big game player, and he's a great carrier. So I'd say Genge, Sheehan, and tight end. I'm not too sure because as a sort of legacy thing, I'd say Furlong, but I'm not sure if he's in the form to really merit it. And I think as much as I rate him, he's one of the few Irish players I both like and rate. I think he's perhaps a bit over the hill. I think it's maybe a tour too far for him. So I don't know. I would have said what's his name, the Scottish lad, but he's injured.
Bagerson, yeah.
He's injured. I think, honestly, tight end could be a bit of a problem because with Bell, I think Bell is arguably the best player in the world. He's a fantastic player, who, by the way, signed for Ulster, isn't he? They go around crying about having no money and podcast. I think who are the other tight ends we got? We got Beelum,
Stewart,
and Will Stewart. Yeah,
I don't know much about Stewart, if I'm being honest. I don't watch much English Prem, and I haven't seen enough of him in England. I think that's an open one, really. I think that's probably that's there for the taking, tight end. Beelum I know a bit better. Don't rate him massively. Stewart haven't seen enough of. Yeah, let's say Stewart then if he can come on and prove himself. But I think tight end's a bit open, and it's possibly an area that Australia will be looking at if they can get some purchase. I don't know with Bell's coming against him. So I'll go Stewart as a bolter, Pure as a bolter, Sheehan and Genge.
Okay, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, I think Porter and Genge are definitely going to be the Lucy's, but we've seen how various coaches like to bring Porter off the bench, like to start Porter. I personally totally happy with either option. I thought Genge was fantastic on Friday. That one particular carry in particular I think he was probably the best player on the pitch for the Lions on Friday. So yeah, no problem there. So if it was Porter starting and Genge on the bench or vice versa, I wasn't particularly blown away by Schumann when he came on. But yeah, that's that. There's no argument there. I think as well as Gibson Park, I think Sheehan's probably the next closest to hands down, there's no option. If Sheehan's fit, he's there. I wasn't particularly blown away by Kelleher or Cowan-Dickey. They both had a bad day in the line out. Now, obviously, Sheehan wasn't there, so it's impossible for him to have a bad day. But I think he's just a freak. We've seen it time and time again. Even if his darts can sometimes get a little bit ropey, but so can the other guys. So that's not something that's going to hold it back. And he's just, he's far and away a better player than the other two in every other aspect. So Sheehan for me, absolutely. And then I agree with Ed. I think tight head is probably up for grabs. It's I thought probably the second best player for the Lions on Friday was probably Bealham. The guys minced the scrum. I think Bealham's been he came into the squad because of the injured Fagerson. And I think if he sticks to his guns, he could very well be the starting tight head for the test. I think, unfortunately, I kind of agree with Ed. I think it probably should have been Bealham getting on tour instead of Furlong. Anyway, I would have much rather see Furlong chill out for the summer and see him back for Leinster and hopefully get back to some of the levels we thought. But maybe that horse is bolted, unfortunately. But I think can he do 20 minutes at the end of a test and do a great job? I think Furlong absolutely still can. But yeah, I think between Will Stewart and Bealham, it's a toss-up. I personally think Bealham might be a little bit of a better player. I think he gets people sleep on him a little bit because I think Furlong's been so prolific. Everyone kind of thinks of Bealham as an understudy, but when in reality, some of the big Irish days in the last 2 years have been Bealham starting at 3, right? So yeah, I think Bealham probably will get the show, but it's a toss-up. It's very close to a toss-up.
Yeah, I think as Irish fans, we're kind of we've been reared in the last decade or so that since the Tom Court days, that if your one tight head gets injured, you've absolutely no hope at all. We're not used to having a second one for backup. Like you had Mike Ross, and then Furlong came along, and Bealham, like you say, he's kind of done really well. He had a good. I thought he did well. That the scrum was a major positive throughout the game. There was a couple of scrum penalty advantages that we never actually ended up taking at the end that came from scrums, and there was a really positive platform. But yeah, it's interesting. That is I wouldn't immediately go for Furlong for any reason, form, just because he's for Ireland, just because he's done well in the past and he's got history. Even the Lions history, he just hasn't played. Just not confident that he's played enough. That cameo off the bench was literally all the rugby he's had in recent times. So for him to be starting in a test in just a few weeks doesn't fill you with confidence, but I suppose we'll see how the outings go down the line. Okay, into the second row, Ed.
Well, I told you he's going to be there, obviously, he's captain.
Yeah.
I think Byrne has got to play as well. I think the second rows, for me, quite easily pick themselves. I think the tight five in general, five Lions Croft is not fantastic compared to previous tours. I think below that, I think it's up for grabs then who gets a place on the bench, whoever's in form. Perhaps Chesham, we'll see. But I think that's your engine room. I can't as things stand, I can't really see another pairing emerging, but you never know.
Yeah, the captaincy nails Anatoje. I mean, it's a good chance he would have been there anyway as well. But we noticed that when he went off, it was actually Ty Byrne who took over the captaincy. So maybe that was a kind of a sign as to what could come. Do you feel the same, Jay, or do you think the others could make it?
Yeah, no, I think he's right. I think as you said, I told you nailed on. I think an on-form Ty Byrne is arguably probably one of the best players on the planet at what he does, right? He just in terms of securing other people's ball, he selflessly just goes for twice the amount of time on the pitch. He never stops working, and even when he seems to always just look incredibly tired. And when he's at his most tired, then he just becomes octopus born again and makes a ridiculous steal, and he just keeps doing that over and over and over again. So I think that's very, very likely going to be the starting second row. I think, given the likely size of the Wallabies second row, I think you're probably going to see Skelton and Nick Frost. We may see, say, a Joe McCarthy for one of the tests, just to add a bit of grunt. He's a bigger unit than some of the other lads. Or Chesham is probably a bit of a unit. He's a fantastic player too. From a line-out option, that's a little shy across the board. Scott Cummings is a good line-out operator. If we start to see line-out struggling an awful lot, you could actually see him start to become that guy, that random guy who becomes kind of irreplaceable just to secure ball. Or say a James Ryan is also good in the line-out. But I think Ed's probably bang on. I think it's probably going to be a Toje and Byrne.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's no harm having a. I mean, they're both. You mentioned Cummings and Ryan, the good lineout operators. I mean, even if they do go with them, they're good 19 options as well. You need to sort of guarantee lineouts towards the end. So, yeah, it's. I think you pretty much got it there. Now to the back row. Some interesting choices there. Ed.
I personally think Curry is got to play. It's a little bit open. Ideally, I'd have a proper 6. I think Curry will play whether it's at 6 or 7. I think 8. My 8 would be Conan. Without too much hesitation. I think he's been there, got the t-shirt. He's a big game performer. I think he's brings you more consistency than perhaps a Ben Earl. Again, I'm not really a big fan of these back rows that are stock full of flashy 7s. So I think Ben Earl is perhaps more an impact player off the bench. So Conan, Curry, and then it's a question of do you put Curry at 6 or at 7? Personally, I'd play him at 7 with a proper 6, but just looking through the squad, there's no real proper 6, so he might end up doing that role by default. Of course, you could put Byrne at 6, but I don't see that happening for the test. That might happen in midweek, but I don't think that'll happen for the test. 7 then, so assume I'm putting Curry at 6. 7, I mean, as irritating as he is, I think Pollock might end up getting in there. I mean, his form and his ability over the last year have been undeniable. His performative antics on the touchline,
cringe.
You know, it's just in rugby terms. I think, yeah, I'd probably go that. I'd probably go Pollock, Conan, and Curry. I don't think that Morgan will be close to it. I think he'll be midweek. I think he's lucky to be on the tour in the first place, to be honest. Again, if we're talking systems, Van der Vlier could come into play. I wouldn't personally have him in the test side, perhaps on the bench. If you go 6-2, doesn't bring the same versatility some of the other lads might bring off the bench. As a Ben Earl who can cover the back row, but yeah, I think that would be my back row as things stand. But again, I'm not enamoured with the options. I think his squad is lacking a proper blind side.
Yeah, I mean, you look at when I look at this, as much as I love Van der Fleer, I mean, all I see is these options. I see for each player, not Jack Willis, not Jack Willis, not Jack Willis. Each all the way down, and it's but listen, you know, it's an and plus we forget, you know, don't forget to Caelan Doris, who would have been heavily in the mix as well if he was there. But you know, there are some good performances. I just thought it was interesting when you said the words, as irritating as he is. I don't think there's a single rugby fan listening who didn't know your next word was going to be Pollock. I think that was pretty clear. What's your 3, Jay?
Yeah, like Ed, I think we're lacking a 6. I think if given his recent form and lack of good line-out options, I'm wondering if Andy could pick the squad again tomorrow. Would say Ryan Baird be in the mix? because you're lacking that's his role, right? Would he be there? Does he on merit over the last year and a half? Probably not. But I mean, in terms of player type and role, we are lacking that specialist guy there, like a Pierre Matney of the past or whoever, But yeah, I mean, I would put Tom Curry at 6. I think he played quite well on Friday. As I said, if it was a case of Caelan Doris being available, we would have had the option of putting Caelan at 8 and maybe Conan at 6. We've seen Leinster do that to great effect over the years, as well as Ireland. But that's sadly off the table. So I would have Conan at 8. I think he's probably as Ed said, he's destructive. He had some lovely tip-ons in that final that Leinster won last week, the URC final, 24-25. Yeah, I think it's Conan. He showed some great leadership towards the end. And I think I'll go against Ed on the 7. I think Josh will be the test starting 7. Simply because I think I agree he's not the biggest guy. And I think overall the back row is probably lacking a little size in general. But I think in terms of what he adds, the work rate he adds, he goes for 80 minutes. We know that's the type of player that Andy really enjoys, and he's former World Player of the Year, consistently like player of the match at Six Nations and Leinster and big games, and knows how to get on the end of a try. So yeah, I think it'll be Tom Curry, Conan, and Josh.
Brilliant.